wanted to talk about the obfuscation of really important data and how this myth that this never happens, which is what I hear activists say all the time in regards to bathrooms and locker rooms and other sex-based spaces, that somebody identifying as a woman never goes in and perpetuates a crime against a woman in these sex-based spaces. And one of the ways that they're perpetuating this myth is by obfuscating the data. And they're doing this by allowing those who are trans-identified to actually report themselves as the opposite sex in the media, in data, even in courtrooms now. And Alix, we were talking about this case in Scotland, which is really disturbing, where a rape victim is being told that she has to refer to her rapist as a woman.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the first, 20 years of my life in Scotland, and I've just been blown away by this law. So Hamza Yusuf has now decided that rape suspects are able to self-identify as female. And this was actually only revealed when there was a Freedom of Information request done. And they had to actually, reveal that this was true. And the nature of women all over the world who are incarcerated, and especially I'd say women in Scotland, okay, these are not women who are, locked up for stealing loaves of bread. These are women who have disproportionately been subjected to violence, sexual abuse. Really, I know that they've committed crimes, they're locked up, of course, but this is cruel punishment. This is really awful punishment. And it's the people who commit, men who commit crimes, men who commit violent crimes, sexual crimes, they are treated a certain way in the male estates. They're, they tend to, there's violence going on. Okay, if you're a sex offender in a prison in America, also in the UK, you get a lot of aggression, and you are targeted a little bit.
People find it so offensive that somebody
exactly
to a woman or a child.
So there is a massive, to say that there's not a big a reason for them to decide to try and get out of the male estate. There's a massive reason for them to try and get out of the male estate. And autogynephilia does tend to appear with other paraphilias. If anybody wants to know more about this, they can read the work of Sheila Jeffreys. She has done a lot about autogynephilia and how it is often a comorbidity with other paraphilias.
And for those who don't know what a paraphilia is, it's a sexual fetish. And so a lot of times you have these men who are dressing up as women, and they're getting aroused by it, and they're going in and they're committing crimes against women, and then those crimes are being reported as a woman committing a crime against a woman, rather than a man committing a crime against a woman. And those men who have committed the crime are able to identify as a woman throughout the courtroom process and then get sent to a female-only prison. And so basically we have privileged this perpetrator by allowing them to identify as a female and putting them in a position where they can continue to offend women, and also putting women in a position where we are unable to accurately document crimes against us because these men are identifying as women in the epidemiological data.
Well, going back also to what you said about, we're always told this never happens. This never happens. A trans-identified individual, a man who says he's a woman, never goes into a women's restroom. I've been told that. I was told by a high school teacher who is a trans rights activist that no boy would ever pretend to be transgender to go into the bathroom, whatever. Well, I mean, we know that's not true.
Well, it actually happened in Utah not that long ago, where a young girl came home and she was very upset because a boy just thought it was funny to go into the women's restroom and basically said, "It's okay now. I'm identifying as a girl right now." And so these boys they're thinking, they're getting their yayas. They're thinking this is really a funny thing to do because they've been unable to do it.
And there's nothing preventing them from doing it. And that's part of the problem, is there is no guideline for who gets to say this, for who gets to do this. It's all about self-identity. It's all about, I can't say that 6'5", 280-pound man, when he puts on some lipstick, I can't say he's not really a woman.
He doesn't
Well, yeah,
even have to put on lipstick, Maria. In many states now, they're changing the birth certificate laws. So a person simply has to go to the records department and identify as the opposite sex.
yeah.
They don't even have to wear lipstick. I mean,
I think about these women in prison, and I think a lot of us really can't imagine what that would be like to be in prison. A lot of us, you know, women, the bulk of the women in the world have never been to prison. But imagine if you were. Imagine that's your experience, and someone tells you, oh, and by the way, you're going to share a room with this guy. He outweighs you by 60 pounds. He's 7 inches taller than you are. And you're going to be sleeping in the same room with him. But don't worry, he wouldn't do anything because that never
and
happens.
he's there because he committed a violent crime against a woman, or a
Yeah.
sexual crime against a woman,
Or against a child.
or against a child.
And women in when women are housed in, let's say before they go to prison, when they're housed in the jail, so it's kind of, you know, while they're waiting to be booked, or they can be there for months. They have to change their tampons, you know, in a public bathroom, in the bathroom that's inside the cell. Okay. So there could be a guy there. Imagine how mortifying that is with a woman there. I mean, you know, they have to go potty, do all of their functions, and imagine the dehumanization of that individual. And again, these women are the most marginalized in, you know, really, I know that they've committed crimes and whatever, but like we can't be so completely flippant and horrible and just disregard their rights. And I would say that there's many letters that have been written by women who are incarcerated to Scott Wiener and Gavin Newsom to say, you're putting us at risk. Women who have said that they're incarcerated and they're saying, I am the victim of domestic violence. What if that inmate with a penis comes and rapes us? What are you going to do? And I have to say, these letters, you can find them on the Wolf. I think maybe we should put them on our website as well, but they're available, handwritten letters on the Women's Liberation Front website. And they're, you know, so this is not just like imaginary women who are incarcerated who are worried about this. These are real women in Scotland, in California, in Washington State. And we have to ask ourselves, why would Scott Wiener hate incarcerated women so much that he would want to do this, that he would want to
and the other question is why does the ACLU want to block this information? Because I used a Freedom of Information request to try and gain access to how many men are now in the women's prison in Washington State. And I got a letter back, and basically it said that there has been a block on that information because the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties, this is an organization that is supposed to be protecting our basic civil rights, has blocked that information because they have chosen to align themselves with these perpetrators. They have chosen to align themselves with autogonophiles. They've chosen to align themselves with the trans activists. And so we're unable to even gain access to the number of men who have been put in women's prisons. But the fact that the ACLU felt that they had to go in and step in and block these Freedom of Information requests indicates to me that there must be many going.
Yeah.
Well, and I would ask too, all of this, the rights of the transgender identified people, it's all about their rights to dignity, their rights to be protected, their rights to have things the way they want them. Why are their rights more important than the rights of those women who are in prison? Where is those women's right to dignity? Right. To not change their tampon in front of a man, to not have to use the bathroom in front of a man. Where is their right to dignity, to humanity, to personhood? That's been completely ignored. Why? Why are women less important than these guys who are scared to be in prison because they know what'll happen to them there? Well, why do they get
so shocking, Maria? Because when we say this happens, the other side will say, no, it doesn't. And if we try to find information, it's getting harder and harder and harder to find cases to prove that this happens, because they are now calling these men women in the court records. And the activists are saying, well, they are women. If they say they're women, they're women. And so they're suggesting somehow we're the crazy ones here. We're the hateful ones. We're the ones who aren't understanding reality, because they've decided that they can just completely manufacture this new identity. And to me, it's just horrifying. As you said, why is it these organizations have chosen to protect, to privilege the rights and the protections of men? And, I keep saying this is a men's rights movement, and this is a big pharma movement, and people are making big money off it, and women are not where the money is, apparently.
Well, Erin, let's also think about what else happened this week in the world of autogynephilia. Bruce Jenner has announced himself as running for the mayor of, the governor of California. So, women are really, truly at the bottom of the pile, because Bruce Jenner is running as a woman candidate, as a female candidate. And I have to say, if let's say his former partner, Kris Jenner, was to have murdered somebody with her vehicle because she was on cross-sex hormones, or whatever, and she wouldn't. I don't think she'd be eligible to be governor of California. And when he is announcing, he is demanding asserting his right to run as a female. I just have to say, I just can't bear it. And this is a guy, by the way, who begrudgingly admitted a few years ago that he kind of supports gay marriage. I mean, that was a humiliation.
This is also a guy who suggested that the hardest part about being a woman is trying to figure out what to wear. This is a man who clearly has no concept of what it's like to be a vulnerable woman. And considering what's already happening in California, the idea of having an autogynephile as governor there, I just can't even imagine. I mean, it's just...
But don't we already have an autogynephile as the Assistant Secretary of Health?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's
we do.
And so how do we go about protecting these women who are in prison? How do we go about protecting the integrity of the data that's being collected, so that we can advocate for ourselves? Because they're changing the data in a way that makes it harder and harder for us to be able to self-advocate, for us to be able to protect ourselves. If we are not able to protect ourselves, if any man really can walk into the Department of Records and change their sex and then go into women's spaces, and there's nothing we can do about it. They don't even have to, like I said, they don't even have to bother to put on the lipstick. They don't even have to bother to put on the wig. We have just completely lost all rights and protections. There's no longer a category of woman anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to just mention this word here, which I think will help a lot of people watching to be able to articulate why they're so concerned. Femicide. So femicide is when a woman is killed, okay? And it's specifically used to describe when she's killed in sex-based violence. So domestic abuse, if she's killed by a partner, or, so femicide is something which people have been researching and documenting for decades. And it's incredibly important that we have these statistics about femicide. If we didn't have these statistics about femicide, we would not know how many women are killed from domestic violence. We would not know how many women are killed by, violent husbands. And we need to have this data. So, if you're having your tongues tied and you feel like you cannot talk to your governor or your MP, you say the word femicide. I want to have accurate femicide statistics. I do not want them to be muddied at all.
Right.
You have to just cut to the chase, get down to the point here.
And we also need accurate rape statistics. We need accurate violent crime statistics. I have been seeing headlines that say the number of women committing sexual crimes and violent crimes is going up. And it's not because the number of women committing sexual and violent crimes going up. It's because people are accepting men as women. And this is really dangerous, like you said, for funding, for research, and for basic protections. There are lots of implications to this.
I mean, it seems to me, to be honest, every week I get a headline that says there was one, I think a couple of months ago, it was a woman in Australia killed her pet and killed her dog and her husband, and it was a guy, because it was, you know, it was, and it was so frustrating to have this headline out there, not because all women are, you know, angels and we have to, you know, just say, oh, women could never do that. Of course you could, but you know, these are not our crimes, and we have to be able to name the problem. This is like a 40-year-old concept of naming the problem. We can't
and to force a rape victim to refer to her rapist's penis as a female penis, as her penis. She did this to me. To force a rape victim to have to lie about who perpetrated such a horrible crime against her. I can't think of anything, like, to me, like, how is that in any way supporting civil rights? These are
I just read a post today of a lesbian who met what she thought was a butch lesbian, and they started a relationship, and a few weeks in decided to get intimate. And during the intimacy process, she discovers that this is a man. He has a penis. And this man continued to insist that he was a lesbian, this was a girl dick, and that this woman, this lesbian, was being hateful and bigoted by refusing to have sex with him. And the post was incredibly disturbing. She was guilted and pressured by this standard of, well, you're oppressing me if you don't let me have sex with you. So this poor lesbian ended up having heterosexual sex with a man who claimed he was a woman. And the whole post was about, I have felt sick to my stomach. I feel violated. I feel
sounds
awful.
like reparative rape. I mean,
yeah, but the end of it was, she was asking for, how can she become a better person so that she doesn't feel this bad? What kind of gaslighting is that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that Maria, I just want to kind of just really stress that is really, as horrifying as that story is, it's actually not that uncommon. Anybody can go to Google and have a look at cotton stealing, and you will just see reams of evidence of this happening, of this public shaming. And it's so horrifying. And, you know, this started back, I think, in 2016. And then it really was, you know, sort of insulting on the internet. But now it's definitely moved into the realm of real life, you know, of people who are, you know, I thought that maybe we were getting to a situation where women wouldn't be terrified to go on dates, you know, women wouldn't be terrified to meet. Yeah, it's just, I can't tell you how much this upsets me.
Well, I'm getting to the point where I don't even want to go to the bathroom in public anymore, because I'm afraid of who I might walk into there. And if I make any noise about it, if I complain about it, I'm going to be the one who's labeled as hateful and bigoted. I'm no longer allowed to stand up for my basic rights and protections. And if that's not oppression, I don't know what is. And so this is a group who is bullying people by claiming to be oppressed. This is a group who is actively bullying women, who is actively intimidating them, and actively, in this case, pushing themselves in sexual ways in women who aren't interested in them. This is, you know, this is like, it's horrifying to me that organizations like the ACLU and Amnesty International are buying into this narrative that is just completely obliterating women as a category, and telling us that if we speak about our concerns, if we express our consent, if we want to protect our sex-based spaces that were hateful and bigoted. That's
Mhm.
gaslighting, and it's not true. And we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to keep standing up for ourselves. And I encourage people to come to Partners for Ethical Care. If you have a story about this, if this has happened to you, or if you know someone who this has happened to you, share your story, because the only way we're going to get through this is if we keep documenting it, and we keep speaking out, and we keep telling people what's happening. Because if we don't, they'll just keep changing the data, gradually changing the language. Maria, you mentioned sometimes it's even hard to know what we're talking about because the language has been so obfuscated.
Oh yeah, I see parents' stories all the time, and they're talking about their transgender identified children. And I have a hard time knowing what the situation really is. Do you have a son who decided he wants to be a girl? Do you have a daughter who decided she wants to be a boy? It's very hard to pin that down. And it's even worse in the media, as Alix and you both mentioned. You read a headline, and I don't really know what that headline's actually talking about anymore.
Yeah.
And if they can change their birth certificate, it's going to be harder for us to even track down reality, to track down the truth, and to show, no, that was actually a man. That was actually a man who did this. This was actually a man who raped this woman. It was actually a man who sexually assaulted the child. It was actually a man who killed this woman.
And also I'd say, you know, the vast majority of men, vast majority of men, you know, they want to name perpetrators as well. They of course are on the side of women, because most men want to take care of women and children. And so this is a subset of horrible, entitled, fetishistic men who are perpetrating these crimes. And there seems to be like a whole system of enablers behind them. But I would think that most men, if you're to speak to them, totally understand this and are going to stand on the side of women.
So what can people do as they are increasingly concerned about this? Because I do feel like there's a sense of helplessness as we see, you know, how the media is presenting things, as we're told, you know, the media is presenting all the legislation that's coming up as transphobic and hateful and bigoted. So what can people do to stand up and fight against this? Because I really feel like people need some tools right now.
I would say something that you can definitely do is there is going to be a lawsuit from Wolf against the ACLU. I would say definitely support it, definitely keep up to date with them, because that is going to be incredibly important. Write to people like Scott Wiener, call him up. Every single bill, I think maybe, Erin, we should start to publish every bill that people can call for to support. Because, you know, we have to push back on all of them. The sports, very much so, because again, we're talking about sex-based rights, and sports is a sex-based right. So, you know, I think that we should call senators, call your MP, call your, you know, whatever your local official is, and
really
make your voice
explain
heard.
how important this is. This isn't just a matter of, you know, wanting to honor somebody's identity. This has repercussions that go down to the very, you know, truth about, you know, the kind of data that we're gathering, the kind of information that we have, the way in which we're able to protect ourselves. And if people can change their birth certificates, that's such a fundamental thing. That's a lie. They're able to lie about their sex at birth. They're able to retroactively change something that happened. If we allow that to happen, then what's going to prevent us from changing other facts, other basic facts? If we don't have a fact-based society, then the most vulnerable people, the actual people who really are vulnerable, are the ones that get hurt. And in this case, it's women and children, and it's not these men who are claiming that they're women.
Well, and another thing that people can do that's not that difficult, it's pretty easy. When you see these articles in the newspaper, in magazines, in media that are lying, that are calling men women, that are saying, oh, anti-trans law. No, it's not anti-trans, it's pro-reality. When you see these things, write to the media company, write to the magazine, write to the newspaper, call it out. Say, this article is in error. This article is wrong. This is factually inaccurate. It's going to take people doing that to call journalists to account. They need accountability.
So I think what you can do, if first of all, if you're a parent who's incredibly concerned about this, about your child, maybe they've recently told you that they're non-binary, we have a book which we've published, with Partners for Ethical Care has published, written by Maria Keffler. It's called Decis, Detrans, and Detox. I'd say it's a vital book. For really, I'd say it's applicable if your child is involved in anything toxic or dangerous, like pornography. Doesn't really necessarily have to be transgender ideology, but I would say it's perfect for that. Also, if you're concerned in any way about the medicalization of children, come to Partners for Ethical Care. We want to help you. We want to hear your stories. If you are, if you know somebody who's incarcerated, perhaps, and you feel like you want to have their rights heard, write to us, and we can put you in touch with the correct organizations. We want to hear your stories. We want to document what is going on, and we're not going away. We're not going anywhere. We're here to see this through to the end, until the medicalization of children has stopped and the destruction of women's rights has ended.
And ultimately, that's why we're focused on the medicalization of children, because that is where, that's sort of the seed of all this, is that if they're able to get away with medicalizing children, then they're going to get away with everything else. If we can stop that, then we can systematically go after these other things. But if we can't stop that, then it's just going to continue to snowball. So
absolutely,
and come to our website, partnersforethicalcare.com, and I'll post a link below so that you can come and look at Maria's book. It's a valuable resource, and we have lots of other resources there too.